Hey y'all, XR student here. So I'm obsessed with moths and I wanted to create more. I really liked what I've created in the past with clay moths and thought it'd be cool to try it again, but hopefully better. That's why I'm cutting out 10,000 stencils so that I can make things even and hopefully have a really good shape to my moth. I started this project with some air-dried clay and it was okay. It was kind of hard to mold and it actually was kind of a pain, so I kept having to use different tools to try flattening it and hoping it would work well. Once I flattened the pieces, I laid down all of my little stencils just like I would do with cookie cutters and tried using as much clay as possible in order to make all of these pieces. It was so much fun peeling the pieces out and seeing the moth come to life slowly. Eventually I tried making the bodies and this clay was just not working. It wouldn't combine. It seemed like it was slightly dry. I just couldn't do it. So I got another brand. It's Italian terracotta clay. It was air dry, so that's all that mattered. And it was fun to shape. It was definitely different and I felt like it had little like string things in it. But it was cool. I got to make all these different shaped bodies and it looked nice and it was malleable, so can't complain too much. Since I had all this clay, I decided to make way more moths. Why not? The idea I had for this project was making a mobile with a bunch of hanging moths that were realistic. Then I also thought, why don't I make some with stars and make it a nighttime mobile? I don't know. I figured it would just be fun to try it out, and I've never done something like this. I honestly hate cutting out all the clay and having this stage of drying. I just like assembling it and having it the final version in order to paint it. It was really cool to see the moths come together because, I don't know, they were just puzzle pieces for a while. Now they're decent and drying and almost to the fun part. This was a multi-day project, which really annoyed me, but unfortunately you have to be patient with some art supplies. I sanded them once they were all dry, and the sanding didn't work as well as the sponge. The sponge smoothed out all the edges, and I know that's what people do when you're working with clay, but I didn't know you could do it with dry clay as well. I think my dry time was off with some of the pieces, so anything that fell apart, I just quickly glued back together. Looking back at all this clay, I can see how uneven a lot of this is and where I could have smoothed it out. Maybe in the future I just do one moth, so then I could focus on tiny little details and make sure it is the most perfect moth ever. The pieces were finally dry, now it's time to bring out the paint, which is my favorite part. That's the only good part of this project. I wanted to go with a blue base for the nighttime sky. I started mixing, and sometimes you just gotta keep experimenting until you get that perfect color. My absolute favorite part was adding all these tiny star details. I loved making these nighttime sky moths. They're so cute. It really helped that all of these pieces were different moth shapes because it made me not as bored to paint them and to add all these little details. Starry night moths are done. Now it's time to gesso up my realistic moths and wait for the dry time, then we paint the details. I didn't really have a crazy method to pick any of these. I just like certain moth colors and I wanted that. I figured if this was going to be mobile, it'd be nice to have a variety of colors, so obviously a Luna moth, then to get some yellows in there, some reds. Some of the clay moths didn't make it past the clay stage. some of the shapes were off or they crumpled too easily. It wasn't worth keeping around, and I just stuck to the ones that were working out well. However, the ones that did make it, I loved painting them. Doing these crazy bright colors for moths, that's so much fun. I'm so used to growing up and thinking moths were just white or brown, but there's so many cool colors, even if some of them are made up. It was so much fun to mix these and try making it kind of realistic, or at least just following the pattern as closely as I could. I know I keep saying, I love this part, but seriously, I love this part when I'm adding the really small details that make the moths look unique and actually like the species of moth that they are. And of course, with that tiny detail, we go in with some paint marker. Sometimes just using a already made tip and already pre-made color, it's a lot easier than mixing your own. And like I've said in the past, markers are close to pencils, so that means I have more control over it, which I enjoy when it comes to drawing on things. They're all painted, now it's time to add some UV resin. And honestly, this was horrible. It took so many layers, and yet it wouldn't dry. Eventually, I did move on to regular resin and putting my pieces outside and just rotations of resin and drying and checking, resin drying, checking, until the pieces were thick enough and also just covered and protected enough in order to be given to someone else, you know? I don't want someone to buy these and then it break right away. Obviously it's handmade, but I'm trying to make it kind of durable. The resin also acts as a protective layer for the painting, and it gives it a nice shine. With the extra drips of resin, I went in with the sander and then eventually with the Dremel to get those little drip marks off or any clumps and chunks. Sometimes I'd have to repaint it and fix these pieces, which led to another layer of resin, but it's all worth it in the end because I don't have to throw away anything, and all of them get to be used if they're decent looking. And I've been working hard on these pieces, so why just throw them away? Since I had some moths done, I was trying to experiment with different circles or shapes that I had to see what would look good for a mobile. Should I put them all in one circle? Should I hang them on moons? Should I make it just by itself? This was really stumping me for a few days because I worked hard on all of them and I don't want to just waste it on something that looks okay. I think these pieces are pretty good. I want the mobiles to do it justice, whether they stand alone or they have some kind of cool structure next to them. I still have a few moths that haven't dried yet. I think it's because of my resin mixture, but you know what? I did finish the other one, so let's take a look at those close-up shots. And I'm finally done. What do you guys think? Do you like what I did with them? Should I have done something else? Put it in the comments. Here's my posting schedule. And don't forget to check me out on Etsy. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment if you would like. And thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Thanks, guys. Bye!